G'day viewers, my name is Michael and welcome back to SingleRacer. And now, given the two things combined, the first one being that I was on a forced 2-month hiatus, and the second being my passion for, or shall we more correctly say, my obsession with the Nordschleife track, which I race almost always online. I was always going to do this video as the first up proper official video when my channel came back. And there's actually a bonus reason, which is for me personally, and that's because the brilliant Ford Transit van that you see here, done by Gary Paterson, absolutely brilliant mod. I actually drove for 7 years in one of my previous jobs, and I can vouch that the handling of this van is incredibly accurate given my memories of the van I used to drive. Now admittedly I drove a petrol version and this is a diesel version, but in handling they are so similar. And so let me just congratulate Gary Paterson for the brilliant work that he did with this mod. But herein lies the problem. You see, so many people took on the channel challenge, or more accurately the Hotlap challenge, which was done by the brilliant German Nordschleife driver Sabine Schmitz. And so what everyone naturally tried to do was to beat her time set on the previous Top Gear show and try and match it. Now, unfortunately, my hiatus video, or my video saying that I had to close the channel at the time, came out almost exactly or just after the Ford Transit van was released, and that's why I knew I would do this first up video coming back. But the trouble is, now everyone else has done the Hotlap, or attempted the Hotlap, and was I just going over old ground? And then it slapped me across the face that there's the answer. Well, if everyone else has done it, there is automatically the Sabine Schmitz Top Gear leaderboard. And I wanted to see, have I lost any edge with having 2 months off driving? Now, not only 2 months off the channel, but completely off driving as well, because I needed internet to use VR and race online, so I couldn't race at all, and as well as having a dismantled computer, of course. And so I now want to see how I compare to the rest of the list. And now, being a fan of all these channels, I already knew very quickly that Alex over at the Extra Mile, Rig Racer, and Chris Hay did videos on it, and Chris Hay pointed to a couple of other attempts by people who suggested he try it. And so this is not a complete list by any means, but at least it's enough to see where I fit. And so finally, given that I acknowledge, just like Chris Hay did, that the lap in the transit van can be, shall we say, slightly boring, but a lot of fun, I am going to do the same thing and do a bit of commentary, although I'm not going to talk maybe right through the whole lap, but just at least give some advice to newer sim racers about how I approached the lap at least. And here's an important point. I already knew from Chris Hayes and Mavericks over at the Rig Racer channel that they both lowered the fuel. So I did as well. I don't know much about setups, but I did alter the car in the sense of the fuel and the tyres. So to be fair to Alex, Alex I know firsthand because I race with him on his Sunday Sub Showdowns, but I know he can leave me for dead as far as his ability. But he was the only one that I'm aware of. Now, there were a couple of others that suggested to Chris Hay that I haven't seen their videos, so I can't confirm with them. But I know that Alex for sure did a standard no change setup. So he's running the full 72 litres of fuel, and we all lowered the fuel, so it's a bit unfair to compare his time. So just take that into account, that I know he could be faster than me if he really put his mind to it and set aside a whole afternoon. So even though his time is there, take it for granted that he run a stock setup. While the rest of us that I know of didn't. We tuned the cars with lower fuel. And so with that, I'll say that there's nothing more to say except this is Michael signing out for SingleRacer. I'll catch you next time, and let's go hot lapping. Okay folks, so here we go for a hot lap, or an attempt at the Sabine Schmitz hot lap on the Nordschleife. Now I'm going to try and help say beginner sim racers, or those having trouble with either this van or the Nordschleife, or maybe this van on the Nordschleife. But for those that you saw in the list before, or if you're an advanced driver, I'm probably not going to be any help because you already got the skill to do this anyway. But I'm just going to talk through how maybe I got my time, because it's all in relation to rolling momentum, as other people talked about before. So as soon as you slide sideways, it acts like a brake and you lose time. So one of the key things here is I go as far over to the left as possible to try and ease that through the corner. And in a lot of corners I brake maybe slightly earlier than I would naturally in a fast car anyway, but it's more about keeping the balance of the car and trying to roll. So here's an example where I ease off and go, make sure I'm turned in before I flatten the accelerator. The difference is I've been accused of what some people say, and they don't mean it in an offensive way, but they say I coast a lot. But that's part of my technique, and it helps me a lot in qualifying. Doesn't do so good in racing because I get hit from behind, but that's how I can be fast. So here I trail brake. I wait for the van to turn into the corner before I hit the accelerator. The difference is that I've talked about before, I only hit the accelerator once. I don't have to ease off and on. But I think this is what makes sim racing so difficult, is there are so many competing parts that make up sim racing or being fast, is because in this corner you do this, but in this corner you don't do this, you do that. And it's that weird combination. So let me talk you through some of the examples. So in every other car I brake at the bottom of this hill, but because this car's so slow I don't need to, and I just keep the foot flat to the floor and use all the power that's available as much as possible to get this van moving forward as quickly as possible. Now Chris Hay covered it, but the creator of this mod, Gary Paterson, says that the torque range is a very small range between about 2628 to 3600 revs. But I found that I got a little bit faster, and that might be my technique, going up to 4. If you see here, I get very close to 4. Now here again, I turn in very early, nice and smooth. Now I actually skidded here, so I could have done this better. I wasn't happy with this particular corner. But see, I go up to around 4000 revs, and what that does is I usually do it going uphill, because what it means is that it falls back down to 3. But if you're going uphill and it falls to 2.8 or maybe even 2.6 or lower, you lose too much momentum. Now here was a weird one in that it's the only car that I've ever gone flat out in 6th gear along that bit of corner. But here again, I run out wide. So this is a bit different. I run out wide because I feel that I can get a more gentle corner through both those corners, and it stops me sliding too much sideways. Now the difference is, and this is where it's so confusing, is there are some corners you keep narrow and other corners you take wider, and that's because my speed was too high, and if I kept narrow on that previous corner I would actually induce sideways skid. So it was actually better to run wide, like say here, run wide, and then when you turn in, so you keep your momentum smooth. Now again, I skid here, but here's where it's also confusing, because what I felt I was doing was, I felt I was maybe carrying, say, so if the perfect speed for that corner was say 125 kilometers an hour, what I might have done is do 127, 128, and yes, I skidded, which sounds counterintuitive, but what it did, it meant that I fell to 125, but I had maybe a little bit more speed. And that's what makes sim racing so hard to figure out, all these combinations, is as we look at the beautiful view. Now I'm running the winter version of the Nordschleife, which means it's not winter as in snow, but it has no leaves on the trees, so I'll show you a bit of the beautiful surroundings. But see, here again, I might come in a little hot, so I think I squeal here, because I'm talking over the replay just so I can focus better. But again, I probably carried a bit more speed, because if I slowed down too much here, I was noticing on my previous time that I was losing too much speed on sidekick, and so maybe I carried deliberately an extra say kilometre or two, knew that I would skid, and that brought me down to the perfect speed, but it meant I didn't lose so much momentum, and that's the confusing part. Now here's the counter argument, where on normal, especially GT3 cars, but performance cars, not here, but a bit later on, I would run more out and then run in, and that's because the car's carrying so much more speed. But because this is so slow, I actually run this deliberately narrow, so I almost straight line it here, and from here on I don't run out wide, because it's so slow that, see, the actual shortest point is almost not going out wide because it's so slow. Now here's another point that I slightly disagree with Chris Hay, because he changed down to fourth, but Chris Hay probably doesn't know the track as well as I do, so I kept it in fifth. And if you have a look at my tacho now, it's because it doesn't drop below 3, only because I feel that this is my pet track. It's almost like my second home. So I knew the exact point of when to turn in, which in fairness to Chris Hay maybe doesn't drive this track as much, or doesn't know the track as well. So he would naturally fall a little bit in revs and have to change down to fourth, where I have that advantage that I know the track and I'm able to keep it in fifth. Now this is pretty much straightforward. It's if you've ever driven this, you know you just got to keep a steady speed through this, but the weird thing is that it's always in a higher gear in this van because it's so slow. So almost everything is in a higher gear. Every corner that you take is in a higher gear, and laughingly I said that there will be breaks through this, but I'm talking non-stop, but that's maybe a good thing because I enjoy the racing so much and just want to help out. But here we come to the thing where the momentum is so important, and this is where you do need to run out wide and keep that momentum up, with the idea of keeping the sideways skidding to an absolute minimum. But the weird thing here was, now, but here's again a counter argument, where I would change up here. I learnt that this made me faster just for a brief second, but here in every other car would change back down. But I found actually I could hold the car. It's a brilliant handling car for what it is. It might be a slow, ridiculous van, but it's fantastic handling, and maybe given my 7 years in this car, it gave me an advantage. But check it out, I hold fifth gear for almost all the way through that, because I felt I knew the shape of the corners so well that I could hold it here. And the same here is that even though I'm sliding, I feel that I can carry more speed to accommodate that sliding, and I don't slow down so much as maybe other people who need to keep the momentum up. But that's purely the advantage of the track. Now again here I wait because I know as soon as you rise up onto that little curb there, you lose some momentum, especially in this car. So I don't ride that curb as much as I do in a GT3 car. And again, see, I'm higher here and I change down, which I do in every car, but I can carry more speed because this van is so slow that it's just automatically in the higher gear. And here is all about momentum, taking it as wide as possible, carrying that momentum. I do this almost exactly the same in every other car. And this corner I was always had, not this one but the next one, always had trouble figuring out how to take it well, and I finally feel that I've unlocked it and it's a certain point you turn in here where you can carry so much speed, then you immediately change down and carry that speed. They're classic apex corners where you're trying to straight line as much as possible. So again here, just trying to slow it down enough to get the turn in and then keep the momentum as you come out of the corner. Now here's one that again gave me trouble, and it's because I kept turning in too early. This is a weird one. We actually here hold it there straight and then you turn in, and for so often I was hitting that curb, whacking the curb and slowing myself down, and how the hell do you take that corner? And it's because for that brief few seconds you hold yourself straight till just after that corner and then turn in. And it's amazing how that took so long to unlock. And here we go, here's the time, 10:25.2. Now in my, it doesn't show up if I have RSR on, but I have beaten slightly that time. It's still a 10:25, but I have gone quicker. But we'll take this as the time because this is the video that proves the time that I did. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it helps some of the drivers still learning the craft a bit. And believe me, don't take my word as gospel. Just listen to everyone, because I am not an alien. So I'm only trying to get you to the point to where I've gotten, but I listen to everyone and keep an open mind. So this is Michael signing out for SingleRacer. I hope you liked it. I'll catch you next time. See you later.